Like for students in India right now watching this episode, this podcast, is there something that, or some advice that you would like to give them?
And you mean high school students?
I think you can choose, depends. I don't really know, like, where would be, like, the most impactful. Is it middle school to, like, prepare for high school? Is it high school to prepare for college? Is it college students preparing to, like, is there just, like, some advice that, and you can be super specific. You're like, hey, you're in high school. This is what you should know.
I feel a little weird answering this question, honestly, because I'll tell you why. I don't fundamentally agree with the way college admissions work in India. I think it's extremely flawed. There's too much weightage on academics. Your life has to be a lot more than how well you can study, and your life outcomes should not be based on just one exam that happens at the end of the year. Unfortunately, that's what the reality in India is. I don't know if that'll change. There are efforts to change it, so maybe it'll change in the next few years. But that's how it works right now. And because the population in India is so high, the supply pool of talent is really, really high.
Yes.
Which means that unlike the US, where it doesn't matter if you necessarily go to the number one college, in India, if you don't go to the top 2 or 3 colleges, your outcomes, at least for the next 4-5 years, will look very different from what it looks like for someone who does. Which means that if you're in high school or middle school, you basically have to study a lot to make sure that you get really high scores in your high school board exams or your university entrance exams. But I feel like it's flawed because, and if I kind of give this advice, I mean, that's what I did.
That's helpful context.
I mean, that's what I did growing up because I knew that I really wanted to go to SRCC. I knew that it doesn't matter if I play sports, if I sing, if I do anything else, because SRCC is not going to care about any of this. So sure, growing up, I played tennis, I used to play the violin, and I used to swim. But I literally, when I was 16, I stopped doing all of this. From 16 to 18, 2 years, all I did was sit in my room and study. Is that necessarily what I would want to do if I was 16 now? No, but will I have the option to do something else? The answer to that is no as well, because there's no other way you can get through these colleges. So yeah, it's a little weird because I wish the entrance exam, I mean the university admissions process in India was similar to the US. I'm not saying in the US it's not based on academics. I'm sure it is, but so many other things.
It is much more holistic. Also, there's athletic grants and scholarships, and you can get in for a whole host of other reasons. And academics are a big part. But I know it's nothing like in India or China where it's completely.
It's super competitive, and I understand because there's so many people that graduate out of high school every year, but the number of colleges or top ranked colleges, which don't necessarily have to be the best colleges, but that's where the recruiters are going to come and recruit based on college rankings or how selective the college is to get in. Also, just to clarify, I'm not saying that if you don't go to a top college in India, your life outcome is bad. I'm not saying that at all. There are multiple ways in which you can still get a great job, or even if you don't get the best job, still get through a great grad school and completely change what your life looks like. But I think it just becomes a lot easier if you somehow manage to get through one of the top colleges through the system or the process that's built in India, because then your life honestly looks a lot easier than it does for people who have to start putting in a lot more effort when they're in college or when they're in their first job to make sure they bridge that gap that exists between someone who goes to one of these top colleges and someone who doesn't. And that grind is super hard. So I would rather do the grind in high school and make my life easier after that than spend a lot more time going through the same grind but much later in life. The way I think about most of these things, it's not always about hard work. You can work as hard as you can, but there's such a big factor of luck. I mean, sure, people see you create your own luck and everything, and sure, you have to work hard, but there's a significant factor of luck that plays in. And I feel I feel like a big part of everything, I'm not saying I've achieved a lot, but whatever I've achieved so far is luck has played a big role as well. I've just been lucky a lot of times. My family could afford to send me to a great high school. My family could afford to send me to great tutoring programs, which meant that the access advantage that I had, it was a lot more than what a lot of other people didn't have. So whenever I start my own company, I want to be in the K through 12 space, because I feel like that's the place where the potential to create impact is really high, because the intervention really needs to start early. Because the later the intervention, the gap between two individuals starts increasing so much that if they're in their 20s, the quality of that intervention needs to be so significantly high that that gap is bridged. But I feel like K through 12, if you start providing super high quality education, extremely good career advice to people, there are ways to bridge that gap much earlier than for it to happen like much later in life.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.